Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esterlin welcomes you to a brand new edition of BTL. A lot going on in the combat sports space. We got Canelo Crawford on Saturday. We'll get into that. Noche UFC coming up on Saturday. We will get into that. UFC Paris was this past weekend. A lot came from that. We'll get into that as well. And much more on today's show. First, I just want to say it has been a chaotic 24 hours. A lot of division in the U.S. and around the world. It's also not a great day. It's the anniversary of 9/11, so lest we forget all the folks who lost their lives on that day. And I know people's hearts are very heavy today. And with all that going on, perhaps we can provide a little bit of an escape from the hostility, from all the negativity. But as always, we appreciate all of you for joining us. And we have ourselves a matchup. We have ourselves a mano-a-mano in the BTL cage. Let us introduce the panel as we have some family infighting. First, let's welcome back Mr. No Gray Area, the hot take kid himself, the climber of all climbers from MMAfighting.com, the man behind No Bets Barred, the one and only Jed Mishu. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
It's not mono-e-mono. It's mono-e-auto. Yeah. Woo. Oh,
Absolutely ridiculous.
all right, guys. Things are a bit rough out there. I'm ready to play.
Otto is ready
Look
with
at
his
him.
huge.
Just look at him.
Look at the pupils of that dog. Jesus Christ.
Look at him.
You mug it.
Look at this. Look at this little guy.
It's
How can
such a
anybody be
great-
having a bad day when Otto's here?
That's very true. You can't have a bad day with Jed's opponent being here as well. He is our road warrior, but his boots will be on the ground at home this week. How about that? He's the best damn social media guy in all of MMA. Also from MMAfighting.com, the one and only Jose Youngs, my fellow Boston Red Sox fan. How are you, sir?
I'm great. The last time Otto and I were on a show together, I put him in a blender and went home with the W, just like the Red Sox did the last few games. So it's all signs are pointing up for another victory for Jose.
Yes. Well,
Otto wanted
let's get
another
into it.
crack at him.
Yeah.
Yeah, Otto
Who
wanted a
wouldn't?
rematch, and a rematch Otto shall get. But before we get into this weekend and some news and notes, let's put a bow on UFC Paris. And I want to start here, Jed, because this is one thing we did not mention on the post-fight show. And obviously we'll get into the main event and everything in a moment, that now that we've had some extra time to digest it. But when you look at UFC Paris, Jed, 11 of 13 fights finished, an electric crowd, some things to talk about in the aftermath, some great performances. We had a few fights with stakes, which is a super rare thing in today's UFC, which we'll talk about more when Noche UFC talk rolls around. I'm curious, Jed, was this the best UFC event of the year?
Non-pay-per-view, it's definitely up there, right? Like there's just, I mean, we love an early day MMA. Certainly for the East Coasters, it was nice to be done at a semi-reasonable hour. To get to have a Saturday night and do other stuff was lovely. The main event, and frankly the co-main event, like we got some storylines, as you said. We got a billion finishes and the crowd was electric. There were some down points, but that's just sort of going to happen for any fight card that has 15 fights or whatever. Fight night, maybe. I'm trying to think back on like what the other fight nights that were like super gassy that were awesome. But yeah, like this, I mean, it's certainly one of the top 5 events of the year and just a damn good time. And like, this is what the UFC is making an effort. They are still very, very good at this thing. And that's sort of why we are always so critical when they're not making an effort, because they could go to lots of locations and have active live crowds. And instead we go to the Apex 18, 20 times a year. And so, yeah, great event. I was really enjoyed last weekend.
Where does this one sit in terms of like best events that the UFC has put on this year, Jose? Because it's got to be up there, right? If we were doing an event of the year category, for like end of year voting and such, this would be in the top 5 at worst, right?
Yeah, you would have to imagine at least top 5, top 3. There's been some big pay-per-views, like International Fight Week was pretty big, with Ilya Pantoja, the Josh Van Brandon Royval fight being like the 1, 2, 3 at the top. Yeah, I mean, even the Beneil Moicano fight was a fun little scrap, Pantalva doing the thing. And then there were all kinds of finishes on that prelims. And even in Chicago, I know the main event was divisive in whether it was boring or impressive, but back-to-back spinning KOs, MVP doing the damn thing, Tim Elliott submitting, Kyasker, and then a ton of finishes on the ESPN prelims. So it's been a good couple of months for the UFC in terms of excitement. Even Montreal was kind of a lot of fun too. Newark,
Miami, good.
Miami was electric as well. So there's the pay-per-views I feel like have delivered. I don't think there's been a dud that off the top of my head.
312.
Which one was 312? Was that February? Was that in Sydney?
Yeah, Strickland.
Yeah, that one is a
Ferrer
little.
Ankalaev wasn't great either. It was okay, but it wasn't great.
Those two were strange to me because I was there and doing the social media and the videos for those generated some of the most conversation. So while the events themselves or the fights might have been a bit of a dud, they definitely generated a lot of discourse online. Either because Ankalaev won and people were complaining, and then there was a lot of back and forth between Ankalaev and Pereira and Yuri post-fight. And then the Sydney card, Strickland and Dricus generate all kinds of things. Wei Li did the damn thing against the woman that everyone thought she was going to beat, that was going to reign over this division for a very long time, who I'm sure we'll talk about later on this program. So, yes, those were does in terms of fights. Definitely created discourse, but the Paris had everything. It reminded me of like that backlash that was in Puerto Rico for WWE, where it was already like the event was like an 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, and then the crowd is what was the deciding factor. That was like Paris is already one of the best crowds you'll ever see. It's rare when an event the crowd kind of translates through the screen. I obviously wasn't there, but watching it, I just remember being like, holy shit, like there's nowhere in America that like hits this hard through the crowd. Like the TV speakers were shaking. So I think the crowd itself brought this into the top 3, maybe top 2 events of the year.
Who was the star of this event, Jose? Because I know Nassourdine Imavov like closed the show and got a win, and it was a memorable one. But like, who is the star? Like, who will the Paris fan base, the Accor Arena, remember most from this event?
I mean, it has to be Benoit Saint-Denis, right? I mean, he kind of had the storyline. Like we talked about it. Had the most to lose because he lost those 2. He lost to Moicano and Poirier, and I know he came back and won in Montreal, but it was on a short notice opponent, and he didn't look that great. So fighting a guy that had all the hype in the world from a team that had all the hype in the world, the last time he fought was probably the worst outing of his life in front of his hometown crowd. So I mean, it has to be Benoit. Imavov is the biggest winner in terms of he might get a title shot next, but in terms of what we'll be talking about, the excitement around his next fight and just the sheer superstardom that we witnessed, it has to be Benoit. He had a perfect fight in front of a hometown crowd and came off as a superhero.
I mean, it seems like a very fair answer, Jed, but there are certainly some other names that competed on this card that stole some hearts from the MMA fan base. So in your opinion, who stole the show? Who was the big star of UFC Paris?
I mean, if you base it on the social media interactions that I'm getting on the tagged IG post that you put out on the post show talking about who gets the next title fight, it's apparently Nassourdine Imavov, and we're the worst people alive, Mike. I don't understand what people don't grasp about our comments on the post show. And I got to tell you, I hate that Instagram won't like let me mute posts or whatever, because I'm just a collaborator on this post. And every day it's some new dude being like, you guys are fucking insane. the winner of Fluffy RDR has no chance to get Hamzat. It's absolutely Nassourdine Imavov. He deserves it. This is a sport. And I'm just like, okay, you must be new here, bro. Or it's just like Hamzat stands being like, Hamzat's going to kill them all. It doesn't matter, as if that was the topic at hand. So I'll go Nassourdine Imavov because the internet is letting me know that I'm a bad person for pointing out that fight is not historically the kind of fight that Dana White and company love to reward with an immediate title shot, especially in the context that I think we all assume Fluffy versus RDR is going to be chaotic good. And that is much more the fight that they would normally be like, yeah, that's the dude who the winner of that is going to get it. But I don't know. The fans stand up for Nassourdine Imavov in a way I've never seen before. So I'll go him.
Yeah, I mean, I found that incredibly shocking, honestly, that more people...
Of all the stuff for people to get mad about, that was not the one I saw coming.
Yeah, I mean, the Aaron Pico stuff from earlier, I thought, that was one thing, and then this led to like a whole other thing. But, I mean, you could just tell who's been watching the sport for the last 10 years, and you're seeing... like who are fans of other sports who have just come over to MMA and think this is a real sport because it's not. It's not. This is, like I said in that little rant, this is entertainment first and meritocracy second. And I think most people who have seen RDR and Fluffy fight, that is going to be the more entertaining fight than what we saw on Saturday. It just is. Like, it was a good win for Imavov. He absolutely deserves to fight for the belt. But there are many names in many divisions of guys who deserve to fight for belts and are not fighting for belts right now. Middleweight is just another example of this. So now I ask you, Jed, with 5 days removed from all of this and our apparently hot takey comments about the middleweight division and where Nassourdine Imavov sits, we've had some time to digest. You've heard from a lot of the fan base who are experts in this field, apparently. Where does Nassourdine Imavov sit on this Thursday, 5 days after UFC Paris?
He's third in line to fight for the middleweight title because the winner of RDR Fluffy is number one. And based on the comments, no one will fight Hamzat Chimaev because no one should. He's so much better than everybody that there's no point in having the fights. Let's just add wins to his resume in lieu of them because that's where we stand amongst the fan base. Look, bro, I don't take back anything. These people are insane. Like, that was a great dominant performance. And in a meritocratic world, he absolutely is fighting next. But in a meritocratic world, he would have already fought for the belt because he deserved it more than Hamzat Chimaev did. And that's just not the world we live in. Dana White came out and, you always take what Dana says with a grain of salt. But that you take what Dana says with a grain of salt, like, when he says certain things, not other things. When he comes out and is like, hey, these 4 dudes are going to fight. Whoever's the best, they're going to fight for the belt. That's pretty accurate. Now, there's also the, somebody gets hurt in the other fight. Somebody just asks for more money. But like, whoever's going to be more interesting of the 4 combatants is going to get it. And Nassourdine Imavov is great and quite possibly the best middleweight on earth. Like, that is a real thing he could be. He is not in front of the winner of Fluffy RDR, like in the dark. He is the leader in the clubhouse right now, but Fluffy and RDR are 6 shots ahead of him and on hole 16. Sure, they could shank it into the woods or put 3 into the water and suddenly card, like a plus 80 or whatever, but he's leader in the clubhouse. They've still got a few holes to go, and they are well ahead of him on the scorecard. It could always happen, but absolutely the winner of Fluffy RDR is prime position right now.
Do you agree with that, Jose? Or is this one of those things where, does Imavov need Fluffy and RDR to be like Yuri and Glover, where they just beat the holy shit out of each other to a point where none of those guys can fight for like 9 or 10 months?
I mean, that would certainly help. I say this a lot. I truly think it's also going to fully depend on where the UFC is holding events, because I'm sure we've all seen the story that either leaked or is coming out of WrestleMania going to Saudi Arabia. I think in 2027, which is nonsense to begin with. If the UFC and TKO are going to hold events in Saudi Arabia, and I would bet Imavov fights in the main event, especially if it's Hamzat. Now, I also think it's going to fully depend on what Hamzat wants. If RDR and Fluffy go out there and have a crazy fight, and Hamzat doesn't tweet a whole lot, but he tweets at RDR after his win. He also tweeted at Imavov. I think it's going to come down to a combination of who has the best win, who's going to be the healthiest, and more importantly, who Hamzat wants to fight. If Fluffy wins, I honestly think Fluffy is first in line. He's had the longest win streak, and he's looked impressive. Imavov, I think, has had the best wins in terms of name value and impressiveness and rankings. RDR probably generates the most conversation because beating Bo Nickel as early as a green of a fighter as Bo Nickel is, he's probably the most discussed middleweight in the world outside of Hamzat Chimaev. And then beating Robert Whittaker, and I use beating in quotes because that is a big debate on the internet as well. Beating Robert Whittaker, we've seen that done a bunch of times lately, including the current champion. So I also, under the camp, don't really care who fights for the middleweight title. I'm pretty sure they're all going to fight for the title eventually anyway. Don't really care who's next. Imavov should be next, but if Fluffy wins, I think it's going to be him. If RDR wins, I think we're going to have a conversation between Imavov and RDR. But Fluffy is like just ahead just based on win streak alone.
I just want to very quickly add in that a lot of people have been beating RDR. Everyone not RDR, Robert Whittaker, everybody who's beat Robert Whittaker has become the champion.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you beat Robert Whittaker, you fight for the belt and then win it. Like that is now historically what's happened. So by this logic, RDR for the belt, dubs. Let's go, baby.
Yeah. Even Kelvin
Gastelum, also
like RDR is the biggest threat. So
we also kind of have this thing like Jed has been big on the RDR train for quite a long time. And then Mike interviews Fluffy a lot. So I assume he's like the Fluffy train. And Damon, I think, is kind of an enigma. And I have no idea who Damon wants to fight for the middleweight championship of the world. And I am on the category of don't really give a shit.
Casey,
David
in on Imavov. And Casey's we are represented well across the middleweight division.
Right now. You guys are like the who gets the Squirtle, Charmander, Bulbasaur, and I'm Ash who just comes in and goes, I'm going to take Pikachu because he's the only one left, I guess. That's me.
Oh, there's no doubt who David wants. David wants Michael Venom Page to fight for the belt. That's Damon's second favorite fighter on the roster, only behind Juliana Pena. So
only behind every single female fighter on the roster.
But hey, listen,
he loves women's MMA.
UFC Paris gave us a lot to talk about. UFC Shanghai also gave us lots to talk about. In fact, we're still talking about it. That's where we're going next. The point for round one goes to I love the backlash shout from Jose. Well done, 1-0. Good comparison. Very well done.
I will still sometimes watch Damian Priest versus Bad Bunny, like now in 2025. That's like one of my 5 favorite wrestling matches of all time.
It's very, it was full of electricity, no doubt about that. Speaking of a man that is full of electricity, how about Brian Ortega? I mean, good Lord, Jose Youngs. The man has spoken. We've been waiting since UFC Shanghai. We've been waiting since the chaos on the scales. And we're trying to figure out what the F happened with Brian Ortega and why did this fight actually happen if some of the things we were hearing were actually true. And it turns out some of the things we were hearing were actually true because he goes on social media, he goes on Threads and talks about this disaster on the weight cut and this performance against Aljamain Sterling at UFC Shanghai. And he confirms he went unconscious for 30 minutes while trying to cut weight.
Crazy.
Didn't know how he made it there, but woke up in the emergency room, felt the entire time that he should not have fought, but yet did it anyways to basically appease Aljamain Sterling and his friends and his family. And there's just so much to this, Jose. I don't want to read every single quote to be here for half an hour, but what was your reaction to this? Like, what this is crazy. This is absolutely insane.
It's so dumb. If you are unconscious for 30 minutes, you don't go to work. You don't go to work for a week. Like if you work in an office job and you are unconscious for 30 minutes, you call out of school. You tell your professor you're missing the test. You don't go get into a fist fight on the other side of the world, especially when you're dehydrating your body. I know Brian Ortega is one of the toughest human beings on the roster. That dude, like he's been knocked out in fights and still won fights. He shaved his head to make weight. This was alarming. This was concerning. This was terrifying for a human being's health. And I feel gross knowing that he was allowed to fight. Someone either on his team or the UFC staff or someone should have pulled the plug on that. We've seen fighters pull the plug, coaches pull the plug on their fighters fighting for less. Like we've seen fighters pull the plug on hurt back, or Anthony Pettis broke his hand in a fight and Duke Roos immediately, like no questions asked, fight's over. We've seen fighters say, oh, I'm seeing 4 of them out there, or I can't see. You get poked in the eye, you tell the doctor you can't see, the fight's off. You go to sleep for 30 minutes cutting weight, fight should be off. You go home. I know he wanted to get his paycheck, and I know he wanted to put on an exciting fight, and I know he wanted to appease Aljamain Sterling, but dude, come on. That is one of the, and he has kids. Like we don't want, like, I think Brian Ortega, I've been on the Brian Ortega train for a very long time. A lot of reporters and fans, including people on the staff, haven't been that high on Brian. I've always thought Brian was one of the better fighters on the entire roster. He's only lost to the best of the best, and he's beaten some of the best. I want to see Brian Ortega compete. I'm going to feel weird next time he fights, especially if it's at featherweight. He should never go to 145 pounds ever again. That's the first step. If he ever fights, if he wants to keep fighting, it has to be a lightweight. Like if his coaches or the UFC offer him a featherweight fight, get new coaches, because that is horrifying. And this is not the first time we've heard this from Brian. The first time we've heard it from going like being unconscious for 30 minutes. But we've seen this enough times that Brian has had these struggles to wake up. Dan Ige got famous fighting Diego Lopes on like 2 hours notice because this happened to Brian Ortega back then. He had to cut his hair to make 145 in Fight Island. He's been talking about going to lightweight for a very long time. Just do it. If you're going to fight again, go to lightweight. Never want to see your featherweight ever again.
Yeah, one of the weirdest like themes of that entire fight was both guys are managed by the same guy. Like
I know
Sterling and Ortega have the same manager. So like Sterling, when asked about why the fight was 5 rounds, is like, I don't know. We have the same manager. I was trying to get a raise and a pay bump and heard nothing back. And now this whole situation where I don't know if the manager is I don't know where he sits, and I know who their manager is, but like, I don't know what he's thinking right now. Is it like, well, if this fight doesn't happen, I lose 10% of both guys. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird situation to be in, but I think we have learned enough at this point here, Jed, that Brian Ortega should not have been fighting at UFC Shanghai, right? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it just made me sad. Because in like a normal world, a normal sport, this would be an enormous controversy. People would lose their jobs. People should lose their jobs. Like a lot of people should lose their jobs. Because like this is how people die. Not to I'm not trying to be morbid or like this is just how people die. This is how grievous, irrevocable injuries happen. And this is why, like literally, this is one of the key reasons why there are athletic commissions.
Yeah.
And I would like to hope that if this happened, in Nevada, that they would have been like, hey man, we're not going to do this. Like, let's call it. I don't know that that's even true given just sort of the state of athletic commissions and their subservience to, the UFC at this state. But like, it's every part of it is awful. It's all terrible because the rumors were that, Brian Ortega was in the hospital. And as soon as that happened, it was like, oh, if he's in the hospital, he's not fighting. And then because he was fighting, it's like, I guess the hospital thing wasn't really true. And now it's actually true and worse than we thought it was. And he still went out and fought. And like, trust me when I tell you, you don't want to see someone die in the octagon. You just don't want to see somebody die there. And the fact that this fight happened, that there was not one adult in the room at any point in this process, it was like, hey man, nope, just no, not worth it. Juice not worth the squeeze, is incredibly disheartening. That Ortega himself couldn't do that. That Ortega's friends and teammates and coaches couldn't be like, hey man, you were passed out unconscious, go get into a fist fight. To Jose's point, like, I don't know that I'd BTL if I was passed out earlier today, much less get into a fist fight, you know? And that none of his teammates would say, like, nobody there with him would say that. Nobody in his management wouldn't say that. Nobody in the UFC would be like, guys, maybe this isn't the best idea because we need a like, it is so disheartening. And in a rational world, a better world, a lot of people would be fired. Like, they would lose their jobs because they should not have them. They do not deserve to have them, and they are going to get somebody dead. And that's going to, like, it is an inevitability in combat sports. I understand that, but we are toggling the dials in the worst fucking ways with shit like this. And it's just like, it's so disappointing that this happened. And yeah, like, I'll just end it like, if the UFC ever allows him to fight at 145 again, like, just kick rocks, man. Like, just don't. There's no reason to ever do it, because you're not going to look out for his safety in cutting to 145 again. That's pretty apparent because you just fucking didn't. So you can't be trusted to look out for him. The commissions can't be trusted. Just say, screw it. You're fighting at 155 or you're not fighting. And yeah, the whole thing sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah. The other weird thing that he said was, he talked to Aljamain Sterling, and Aljo was like, yeah, man, like, it happens. Don't worry about it. The UFC already found a backup opponent. And it's just like, no, I don't want to waste your time. I'll still fight. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? They had a backup opponent, but they still allowed Brian Ortega to fight? Like, how is that wasting Aljamain Sterling's time if he's still going to fight? Like, he wasn't going to get a title shot unless he absolutely annihilated this man. And Brian Ortega is, like, impossible to annihilate. So, like, it was already against him to that degree to leapfrog Lerone Murphy anyways, but he still would have fought and still got paid. Like, I don't understand the thought process here if what Brian Ortega is saying is true. I don't get it.
And there's
so
weird. There's like one fighter at 140. Well, there's probably a bunch, but like the most outspoken one that has been very vocal about how much weight cuts suck is Aljamain Sterling. He's like the fighter that would get it the most, because his cuts to 130. I bet his cuts to 135 were absolutely hellacious, and he's either gone unconscious or come close to unconsciousness a few times because he is a big dude to go to 135. So there's one guy that you would have been matched up with that would have been understanding. It is Aljamain Sterling. So it's just a bummer.
Seemed like he was. It seemed like he was. 100%. And now this hurts Aljo's win like even more in the aftermath, right, Ted? Because now it just makes it seem like you fought. He basically, without saying it, was like he fought the literal worst version of me, completely depleted, who I should not have fought, but I did anyways. But hats off, Aljo, you won.
Yeah, I mean, we all felt that way at watching it because it was evident that that was not like a good Brian Ortega. But now, yeah, it's just like there's no winner here. And it's just like, I can't get like, I cannot stress this enough. This is how someone dies. For all the fervor there is for steroids and the dangers it poses, steroids are not going to be why somebody dies. Like the first death in the octagon is not going to be because some random dude was on the gas and he had the powers of Superman and broke a man's neck with one punch. It will be because somebody cut a bunch of weight, should not have been fighting, and then fought. Like, this is the actual danger to fighters, and the just like brazen cavalierness with which it was handled is, like, it's awful. It is so bad. I don't know who in the UFC knew about this. I assume some people did, because you don't just have a dude go to the ER in China and, not know about it from the fighter hotel, but it's just stone cold shameful that this occurred.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. And I love to say I hope things change, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. So let's move to this Saturday. We'll stick with MMA and then we'll get to the boxing ring. But the point for round 2 goes to Jed. We're happy even after going unconscious. He joined us for BTL today. So thank you so much for doing that, battling through.
You know,
and being here.
I've never had that happen, but I'd try and tough it out because I'm a soldier, you know, but I'm also not taking brain damage in doing this.
Famously has the dog in him, as the kids say these days.
I do
Yes.
famously have the dog with me.
Yes.
Otto, come back.
Otto, come on.
I was hoping he was right. I was hoping he was right there, so you just hold him up.
I was trying to get him. Otto, come on. Otto's just laying down on the floor next to me. He's not.
Yes.
We've got that dog. We've got that dog.
And there's the victory music. Well played. Jed, Otto, I'll ask you this because look, we got Noche UFC this Saturday, Jed. Jean Silva versus Diego Lopes is the main event. It's a big fight. Rest of the card, certainly some stakes in some fights. But if we're comparing this to the past 2 Noche events, Jed, do you know how many ranked fighters are competing on this card?
So I am not looking at it right now, but let me go off the top of my head. Both in the main event, Rob Font, that's 3. Lemos and Tatiana Suarez is 5. Kelvin Gastelum's no longer ranked, so that's got to be at 5, right?
That's it. Just 5 ranked fighters competing at Noche UFC, which is pretty wild. So, Jed, you like
That's why we have 4 fights above replacement right here on the board.
So there's the grade. Explain your score. Are you excited for Noche UFC? I mean, I feel like the last 2 we've been very excited. Obviously, last one was the Sphere card, and that kind of took all the intrigue, so to speak. But I feel like there's a whole bunch of nothing here outside of the main event and a couple of other things.
I'm not excited for Noche specifically. I am excited for this weekend in total, right? And I am, because of the way it's set up, I'm largely viewing Noche as the undercard to Canelo Crawford, because that's functionally how it's set up, right? Like there will be overlap, but it'll be all prelim boxing matches that I straight up don't care about. And once we're done with Jean Silva, Diego Lopes, then we'll be into the main card of Canelo Crawford. And so looking at it as one mega event, I'm pretty pumped about it, right? Like it's a lot of fights, and that's part of the Noche issue. I think there are 14 fights on this card. That's just an enormous amount, and not all of them matter, but some level of interest in most of them for, there's a 19-year-old debuting even early and stuff like that. A couple of really big, important fights. And I am personally just super stoked on the main event of Noche. I think that fight is going to be a ripper. And so, I'm not as excited about this. If I'm just looking at the Noche card, I'm not as excited as I was about Paris. And I think objectively, this is a fairly weak fight night card and the worst of the Noche cards thus far. But as the amuse-bouche to Canelo Crawford, I'm pretty pumped about the weekend in total because there are a lot of things that I'm pretty interested in seeing, even if I don't think I don't think Crawford Canelo is going to be that fun to watch. The spectacle is big. Like I'm interested in a lot that's happening this weekend. And so in total, I think I'm more up on it than most, but objectively, this is not a great card.
Jose, your thoughts? Noche UFC, the 3rd edition, certainly does not hold a candle to the other 2.
No, and I was actually at the other 2, so that should tell you something. This could have been big if the fights were still happening at Guadalajara like originally planned. You would have to imagine there would have been a title shot, a title fight, and a whole bunch of very exciting fights. But the second it moved from Guadalajara because the arena wasn't done, and they announced Canelo Crawford, you just kind of knew this would, especially because Dana and the UFC are basically promoting Canelo Crawford. I know it's a ring and TKO type thing, but it feels very much like a UFC fight week over there in Vegas. I know Casey's there, and even media day just felt like a UFC media day. The second all that happens, you kind of just assumed Noche UFC Part 3 would just kind of be an afterthought, which is a bit of a bummer because I thought the last two Noches were very fun to cover. And it brought a lot of media that would not normally be at a UFC event. Obviously, a lot of Spanish-speaking media, a lot of media from Mexico came up. It just, the last two being in Vegas, Mexican Independence Day week is a big deal in Vegas, regardless of whether you're going to fights or not. Pretty much every famous Mexican musician that has any sort of crossover appeal between the States and Mexico performs in Las Vegas or Texas or LA, but a lot of them have like specifically in Las Vegas. So the last two times I was there was quite a bit of fun. There's also not a lot of Mexicans on this card. There's a lot of Brazilians, a lot of Mexican Americans, but there's not just, born and raised Mexicans fighting on this card. I know the main event didn't have one in the main event, but the rest of the card itself was pretty well represented by a lot of Spanish speaking countries. And then the first one was outside of the strange co-main event between Kevin Holland and Jack Della Maddalena being on Noche UFC. It was just that fight, this being the inaugural one, was also quite a bit of fun. And it was a fight night in the T-Mobile Arena, so that was kind of unique in its own. Still excited for the fight, but I think Jed kind of nailed it on the head. If you view this as the undercard for Canelo Crawford, and I'll even throw like the Gable Stevenson fight in there too. It will be a fun night, fun weekend of fights. You'll just have to spread your attention across multiple sports and multiple promotions. Is there a BKFC this week too? Am I crazy?
Yeah, Yoel Romero's debuting on Friday.
That's right. So, I mean, start Friday and just buckle up because it's going to be a lot of Spanish-speaking violence all weekend.
Yes. Well, let's talk about this main event, Jose. We got Jean Silva, who's the rising star of this division. He's an absolute maniac. He's facing Diego Lopes.
And an earring thief.
The earring thief himself, Lord Jean Silva. Diego Lopes fought for the belt earlier this year against Volkanovski. It wasn't a terrible fight. He lost pretty clearly. There's not a human being on planet Earth who felt Diego Lopes won that fight. But I'm curious who needs this one more. Is it Silva to probably get a title fight? Like, I don't know if he leapfrogs Lerone, but you would imagine if he wins, he'll win big. And he will probably fight the winner of Volk and Lerone Murphy. Plus, he gets his team, the Fighting Nerds, back on track after maybe some tough PR. Or is it Diego Lopes, who is already kind of in a tough spot with Volkanovski holding the belt and needs some things to fall into place to get back to a title fight? Like, who do you think needs this one more right now?
This is not a cop-out of an answer, I promise you, but both fighters need this for very different reasons. Competitively, it has to be Diego Lopes. I know he lost to Movzar, and then he went on that long tear and then got the title fight, which a lot of people thought probably should have gone to a Movzar to begin with. Had the fun fight against Volk, but didn't win. So losing 2 in a row at 145 against two guys in like the top 5, like the current champ and then someone that's been on the rise, is nothing to hold your head down about, because he's already one of the most popular fighters at 145 pounds. He might be one of the 3 most popular fighters at below 155. Everywhere he goes, he seems to be a superstar. So competition wise, athletic wise, it has to be Diego. Jean Silva has done a lot of shit talking. Says he doesn't like Diego Lopes. He's the only one in the world apparently and Yair that don't like Diego Lopes. He says he needs to kill him, needs to beat him up. He's saying they have to be separated a bunch at the hotel. Has said a whole bunch of stuff to me about him being Brazil, about Jean Silva saying Diego Lopes is Brazilian, pretending to be Mexican, and he doesn't know who he really is. He's talking a big game. If he goes out there and lays an egg and gets cooked by Diego Lopes, that's not going to look great. It's going to be 3 big-time losses and 3 marquee spots for the Fighting Nerds. He's the one doing all the shit talking, and he's going to go out there with an L. Eyeball-wise, he has the most to lose. Athletic-wise, Diego has the most to lose. But I think this could be one of those rare occasions where if this fight, I take that back. It's not a rare occasion with these two. This fight could be so good that we talking about both of these guys being big winners this fight week. This is, as I like to say, high level martial arts at its finest against two of the most violent men at 145 pounds. Diego Lopes has never been in a boring fight in his entire life. Jean Silva has never been in a boring fight in his entire life. Diego Lopes has proven can't finish him. If Jean Silva goes out there and knocks him out or submits one of the most durable and best grapplers in the division, I'm not saying he's getting a title shot, but we're going to have that conversation. If Diego Lopes goes out there and cooks the guy that everyone has been talking about and has talked a big game, he's right back in maybe another win away from getting another title shot. So that sounds like a cop-out answer. It's not, I promise, because both of these guys are fighting for very different things at this point.
Yeah, John Silva with the trash talk. I remember interviewing him not that long ago, and I just introduced him. He's fighting Diego Lopes at Noche UFC in the main event. He's like, "It's great to be here, but let me just clarify: this is not a fight. I have already won. I'm killing this man. So let's not call it a fight. The fight is over. It's already a win for me." 30 seconds into the interview, so that just shows you this the kind of cat John Silva is. Jed, John Silva's one of your guys. You told the world about him. I think you probably like kind of the first one on him in a lot of respects. I mean, there are others who probably saw him and followed his career pre-UFC, but once he was on Contender Series started, he was one of your guys. All violence, dude. Just the kind of guy you're looking for. So who needs this one more? Is it your guy, John Silva, or is it Diego Lopes, considering what happened in his last fight?
Diego Lopes needs it more just because 2 losses is bad at this stage of his career, right? Like, even if they are, to the current champion and maybe the future champion, I mean, that almost makes it worse, right? Because if he loses this and John Silva goes and wins the belt, then it's like, whoopsie daisies, you just aren't in line to get this belt whatsoever. And just 2 losses is, when you're at the top of the sport, if you're not like a super entrenched guy, you're not Dustin Poirier, it's hard to come back. You have to win multiple fights to battle back in there. And this is how you become Dustin Poirier, is to not suffer 2 in a row. Like that's sort of how you build that kind of resume. And so, look, if Jean Silva loses this, he's on a heater right now. I think he's 5-0 in the UFC and sort of burst onto the scene a year and a half ago, right? And so this is, if he wins, this is, okay, Fighting Nerds are back. They took a step back, but this is the best of the Fighting Nerds guys anyway. He's fighting for the belt in his next fight if he wins this. Like, he has so much to gain. He has much more to gain than Diego Lopes has to gain on Saturday. But Diego Lopes has more to lose, because if John Silva loses, maybe if he loses really badly, then it's like, oh, Fighting Nerds in free fall, whatever. But he's still a young dude. You're allowed 1 loss in the sport. It'll be a setback, but you can overcome that. Diego Lopes is suffering a much bigger setback, has much more to lose on Saturday against John Silva. And this shouldn't matter, but I honest to God think it will matter in situations like these. When they're in the cage, Diego Lopes is going to look enormous because he is a huge featherweight and John Silva is not a particularly large featherweight. And the optics of losing to a dude way smaller than you, it comes into play a little bit. It's not like the most important part of this, but I honest to God think that people will look at Diego Lopes differently if he gets dusted up by a dude who is going to look a weight class smaller than him come Saturday night.
We'll talk more about this card tomorrow in the preview show. But Jed, outside of the main event, is there a fight that you are supremely interested in? I know probably people will point to Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos because it's the other fight featuring 2 ranked fighters. But Tatiana Suarez, most people feel like she's just going to go in there and cook Amanda Lemos. She's, I think, the biggest favorite on the card, if not one of the top 3. She's almost minus 500. So most people
she's
would be
the quad,
utterly shocked,
boys.
Oh, so there you go. You would not be surprised if Tatiana Suarez wins that fight. You're fairly confident she will. So is that the other fight you have your eye on just because of the climb, or from a fan perspective, what else stands out to you that you are supremely intrigued by here?
I do think the Suarez Lemos fight is objectively the second best fight on this card as far as top level fighters competing against each other. I really like the co-main, but that's a cop out to pick the co-main event as the other fight to pay attention to. But Rob Font is great. And, I thought Rob Font lost to Jean Matsumoto, but that fight was incredibly close. No issues with him getting the win. He's now fighting another dude coming off Contender Series who I was very high on in David Martinez. Can he do it again? We'll see. But, the spirit of this low-key banger-ish. And I don't know that it's low-key because these are well-known names, but it's just I think it's the fight I'm the most interested in outside of the main event, just to see what happens. It's Alexander Hernandez, CDF, Colistiga Fajeda, because Alexander Hernandez is, I think, on the best run of his UFC career. He's 3 fights in a row right now, coming off the Chase Hooper knockout, and super talented guy who seemed to be destined to be a top 25 lightweight. And that still may be his destiny because he's now getting another top, CDF, I think at various points has been really close or has gotten a ranking for a moment, but is that sort of 15 to 25 kind of lightweight, not top 10 sort of character, but has been that way for a decade. And so in general, just pick the lightweight bouts on fight cards. They're going to be the best ones. This one, I'm intrigued because CDF, he's coming off the loss to Grant Dawson, but still has some juice despite being 40 years old. And just this is just should be a really fun fight, however it shakes out. And I honestly don't know. Is CDF too old? Has Alexander Hernandez found something and is putting together a real run at this stage of his career? I think it will be the most entertaining, and it's the one I have the most questions about. So give me the lightweights.
Yeah, the betting community, it's one of 2 absolute coin flips right now, according to the betting community. Jose, what say you? Is there a fight, one particular fighter? I mean, we do have the youngest fighter on the roster making her debut on this card, so a lot of eyes will be on her. What do you think?
I mean, the Hernandez Diego Fajeda fight rules because I don't know if you guys have read or seen Guilherme's interview. I don't think it's come out yet with Diego Fajeda. Maybe one of you guys edited it, but he's selling this fight as the battle for the King of Texas at lightweight because he is, I think lives and trains in Texas, obviously from Brazil, and Alex Hernandez is from San Antonio and trains in Denver. So he is billing this as whoever wins is the official King of Texas at 155 pounds. And I love nonsense like that. Anything to build a fight that's silly like that, I'm all in favor of. So that should be the answer. But outside of that, I think this is a real, and I've probably said this a few times about his career. This is a real crossroads for Kelvin Gastelum right now, because I know he's lost 3 in a row before, but being submitted by Sean Brady, flying to Saudi Arabia and having the weight issues against D-Rod, and then losing to Joe Pyfer. And even before that, I know he fought Chris Curtis in a very exciting fight, but that had the weird head clash, I think, in Miami. I think it was the Miami card. And then outside of that is losing to Jared Cannonier, losing to Whitaker. So hasn't been the most active and has been on a bit of a skid in terms of performances that we're used to seeing Kelvin Gastelum. If he goes out there and loses to who's he fighting? Dustin Stoltzfus, I think his name is. I mean, he's a good fighter. But if if you drop one to him, I don't know how. I'm not saying they're going to cut Kelvin just went into the UFC Hall of Fame for his fight against Israel Adesanya. I would hazard a guess to say that this is probably the end of the line for seeing Kelvin fight elite middleweights that we've been accustomed to seeing him fight for the better part of a decade. So he's lost a bunch in a row. This stretch feels a little different. This is a true, I think, crossroads this will determine how much longer we see Kelvin fight the elite of the elite, I think.
Technically, Kelvin has lost a bunch in a row this time because he did beat D-Rod, even though that fight sucked and was weird.
Yeah.
So he's technically only on a 1-fight losing streak.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
agree with Jose.
He missed weight. Did he miss? He missed weight though, right? Or he came in too heavy and they had to make it a middleweight.
Also, technically no, because they just moved the weight. They moved the fight.
Yeah,
so I don't think he even actually technically missed weight. They were just like, oh, this is supposed to be X. Now it's Y. I do agree with Jose. I think Kelvin, you could argue that Jose Danielle Medina and Dusko Todorovic have the most to lose, because that's a straight up pink slip derby. They're both on 3-fight losing streaks. The loser's getting walking papers on that one. We're contender series season. So they got replacements for those. Kelvin probably does have the most to lose. Like, this is the Ian Heinisch fight all over again of like, okay, if you can't beat Ian Heinisch, like you're done here. Like this, if he loses, I disrespect, not like intended, but it's just de facto disrespect to Dustin Stolfitz. He will be the worst fighter that Kelvin Gastelum has lost to by a good margin if he loses to him. And so this is just Ian Heinisch all over again. He has to win this to stay involved. And if he doesn't, he's pretty close to walking papers himself, because Kelvin ain't cheap and it's contender series season.
Yeah, I actually think this is a little different than the Ian fight, because like Ian was at least a guy. I mean, he beat Shoeface, he beat Ferreira, and then his losses were to Derek Brunson at the time, which was like, okay, Derek's a good fighter in 2019. Omari Makhmedov was like an up and comer, and then he just bolts Gerald Meerschaert on a pay-per-view, and it's like, all right, this guy might be a top 15 middleweight, so it was kind of like a litmus test-ish more of a fight than this is. I mean, just look at, when I talked to Kelvin, I ran off, I was like, these are your opponents the last 10 years. And one of these things is not like the other when Dustin Stoltzfus enters the conversation. He has a Edson Barboza-esque looking resume over the last decade. And then there's Dustin Stoltzfus. So like, this is big. He knows that his job might be on the line. He knows he thinks this could be a pink slip derby, that whoever loses is out of the UFC. And I tried to press him on a little bit more. He wouldn't really go past that point. But yeah, it's an interesting fight. This is probably the most winnable fight of Kelvin's last decade, maybe outside of the Michael Bisping fight, after Bisping got thumped up by GSP and then came back 2 weeks later and tried to fight somebody, which is ridiculous.
Bad
but
ideas.
Very bad idea. But yeah, that is Noche UFC. Let's go to Las Vegas. Let's talk about the big one. Point for round 3 goes to...
Is it to the New York City Cab?
No, it goes to Jed Bashir. The Cab, I mean, just made it worse. But yes, good job, Jed. All right, let's continue on here. Canelo Crawford, ladies and gentlemen, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. There'll be a lot of people in attendance. The vibes will be high. Dana White has already done a bunch of interviews saying that it's already the 3rd biggest gate in boxing history, behind Mayweather-Pacquiao and Mayweather-McGregor. It's got to be on Netflix. And look, at the end of the day, no matter who is promoting it or what network it airs on, this is going to be a fight that resonates with combat sports fans. I mean, anytime you have 2 of the best in the world fighting, it is a very big deal.
I just hear how excited New York is about it.
New York is fired up.
Not be more excited about it.
That's unbelievable.
But Jose, we were briefly talking about this before we went live.
There's a bus now.
This feels super UFC-ish. Like Dana White's out here doing some media, and Dana's doing some of the big shows that won't have he's doing shows that fans are tuning into that will not be rushing to the television screen to watch this event. Like Colin Cowherd fans are not boxing fans. They are NFL fans. They're NBA fans. They're college football fans. And Turkey is in the news for not the right reasons, for kind of controlling the event and controlling the media and other things. All that said, this to me, and you're more of the boxing guy for us, this does not feel nearly as big as it should. Does it feel that way to you, that this is, it's going to do okay because of the names involved, but it feels very UFC lightish in terms of promotion, that it's just not feeling as big as it should be feeling.
To me, yes, it does feel a little bit UFC-ish, just because Dana is so heavily involved. It just feels a little light on excitement, because if anyone has followed Canelo Alvarez over the last half a decade or so, he's been asked about Terence Crawford quite a bit, and he has been very dismissive of that fight. He was always dismissive of taking the Crawford fight, whether Crawford deserves it or what do I have to gain of him going up 2 weight classes and fighting me. And he wasn't selling it didn't sound like he was selling a fight that he was interested in. And then he got a bunch of money thrown at him basically to not fight Jake Paul. And then he took the Crawford fight. So to me, it feels like a rich guy throwing a bunch of money and buying 2 action figures and making them fight. It doesn't feel like when Canelo fought Mayweather, that was very much they were both undefeated. Canelo was I think that he had firmly established himself as the face of Mexican boxing, and he had just been knocking fools out left and right. When he fought Triple G, it was really, those guys were in the same weight class. They were both champions. It felt like that fight made sense, and it had the hype. So that checked all the boxes of why the first 2, the third one, I don't really count, were so exciting. And then they were both in their physical primes when they fought. You can't, to me, like Canelo will sell anyway, especially on Mexican Independence Day. The second you make this fight free, it's less incentive to sell the fight to begin with. And then Crawford hasn't been that active at all, period. I mean, the fact that Canelo has been very I fight September, I fight in May, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And I know a lot of he should have fought Benavidez, he should have fought another few guys, but if he can't make that fight happen, he takes the next guy up. He has not been one to shy away from tough fights. I don't quite understand the hate around Canelo. I know that might sound like me defending a Mexican boxer, but he has taken all challenges in multiple weight classes, and he has been very dismissive of Crawford. Even when they announced this fight, he did the media tour, and he's like, who have you fought? Who have you fought that's good? And the fact that Terence Crawford didn't say Errol Spence is crazy to me. But I don't think Errol has even fought since the Crawford fight, and Crawford hasn't been that active either, so we don't have a lot of recent highlights. You can't play the Terence Crawford highlight reel package since Canelo fought X amount of years ago. Canelo, Crawford, I don't know. This feels like it should be bigger, but Crawford wasn't a pay-per-view draw to begin with. He's very clearly one of the 3 pound-for-pound best boxers in the world. It's pretty much Usyk, Inoue, Crawford. No wrong order. It really depends on flavor of style of boxing that you like. Canelo is not one of the 5 pound-for-pound boxers in the world, but he is easily one of the 3 biggest pay-per-view draws in the entire sport. Doesn't matter if there's no pay-per-view, why sell the fight? So the big pay-per-view draw, not selling the fight, not selling the free fight against the guy that historically has not been a big pay-per-view draw, probably not going to feel like a big fight overall.
What do you think, Jed? I mean, obviously we're going to be watching. In fact, we'll break some news here. You and I won't be exactly the same, but we're going to have a little watch party on Saturday night for the last few fights of this event. So join us. You can watch it with us, and it'll be a lot of fun. But why does this not feel big? I don't know. Am I just are you feeling the sort of just UFC-ishness of all of this?
I think there are a couple of reasons. I think that it feels a little, we were talking about this off air beforehand. It feels a little bigger to me because I am getting some mom test stuff about this, primarily because it's on Netflix and Netflix is promoting it. If you log into Netflix, there's Canelo Crawford stuff. And everyone I know knows who Canelo is. Most don't actually know who Bud Crawford is. And so this is I think that's part of it, right? Terence Crawford is massively respected as one of the best fighters of his generation, and is attempting to do something nobody has ever done before on Saturday and becoming the first male undisputed 3-division champion in the 4-belt era. But like the knock on Bud has always been that he is not a popular fighter, right? Like he's popular regionally, but he is not, and he's famous-ish, but he is not broadly, casual fan famous. Certainly not in the way Canelo is, who's just been around forever. He got the Floyd, rub early in his career. People know Canelo Alvarez, and so they do know about this. That being said, I mean, I think some of this is because it's Terence Crawford, and I think some of the just like general malaise towards this, even amongst people who kind of know, is that like, yes, this fight's been talked about for a while. Nobody wanted it, right? Like this is not this is a fight that was pitched because of kind of it's feasible, and they are two of the top 10 pound. Like, I agree, Terence Crawford is undeniably one of the three best pound for pound fighters in the world. I have him number one in boxing, but like it's one of those three. And Canelo is undeniably a top 10 pound for pound fighter. This is like a manageable thing to do, but there's a big weight gap here. That's why people weren't like banging the drum for this. This always, even in the earliest stages of it, felt a bit contrived, a bit of a financial, workaround to make a big fight, because like Terence Crawford is giving up a sizable amount of weight. Technically, he's going up 2 weight classes. In reality, he's going up 3. Most of his career has been at welterweight at 147 pounds. He is now moving up to 168 to fight Canelo. Like, would fans be that stoked if Volkanovski was fighting Jack Della Maddalena? Like, they'd be interested, kind of, because it'd be weird. But no, like that is a huge piece to this whole puzzle that they have tried to sort of gloss over, but it's hard to, especially the one thing I will kind of majorly disagree with Jose on what he just said is like, yeah, for most of his career, Canelo fought all comers, took on all challenges. Like, that's how you get to this stage. And I don't begrudge him this, but he is currently very clearly in the career management stage of his career where, it is the John Jones, I am prize fighting. I am taking on it is absolutely the mental calculus of I'm only taking fights I'm going to win and get paid a lot of money for. Floyd Mayweather did the same thing at the end of his career, right? Like, for the last several years. Like, why, when you are the A side of A sides, you get to pick and choose who you fight. There is no impetus, no compulsion to take a fight where there is risk. And so, like, I'm not that interested in the actual nuts and bolts matchup here, because my default position is if Canelo accepted the fight, he's going to win, because he would not accept a fight where there's a reasonable chance that he will lose. And I think that will hold true here. Because like if he was trying to maximize not just his purse, but his legacy, he's already a Hall of Famer. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore. If he was trying to do that though, he'd fight David Benavidez. Like, that's the fight everybody does want and has pushed for in boxing circles. And so I think that's why this is down, because there is a fight that we do want, and this is not exactly it. It's a good one, and it's a historically significant one. And I think as things get a little closer, people be more excited. But this is a fight that would need like a much bigger promotional effort from the two combatants involved to get people over that line. And Terence Crawford has just never been that interesting. And Canelo clearly does not care to promote this because he does not have to. And so we're sort of left in this kind of middle ground.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the build to this fight compared to like even the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, that thing did 108 million viewers for their fight in November. 108 million viewers.
It's a lot of
Chad,
viewers.
There's no effing way this is coming anywhere near that number, right? Like, does this even get halfway there? And that would be like a monument, in my eyes, that would be a monumental success. Like, that would over exceed my expectations to an umph degree. But I don't think this is getting to 54 million. Do you?
No, I wanted to pull something up real fast for this weekend, aka let me see what the college football slate is on Saturday. Saturday evening, actually there's not a lot of Texas Notre Dame is actually probably going to pull some eyeballs. From this. So that will, because people don't like to hear this or whatever, but college football rules America. And this is primarily an event for America, not exclusively. Obviously Canelo Alvarez is involved, but the 18 to 34 demographic of male viewers are probably not going to be on Netflix casually on Saturday night in the same way that they might otherwise. And so this isn't getting to 9 figures at all. There's just no chance of that, I don't think. Half of that would probably be a win, right? Like it's still big, but I don't have any real concept what Netflix considers successful in general, and certainly not as they make this kind of broader push into live sports. But I guess we'll find out. I would be shocked if this thing cleared 50 million live viewers. I'd be shocked.
So Taylor Serrano 3 did 6 million.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
Canelo's
considering that event,
substantially more famous.
yeah, I think considering that event, like that's a huge success. 6 million for that card, and all women's event at MSG, like that's a big win. I think 6 million for this fight, Jose, would be a disaster. I think it would be a monumental disaster. They're not getting 108, that's for sure. I don't think they're getting 50. I think anything under 25 is a loss. What say you?
It's going to be hard to compare it to Tyson Jake Paul because that fight happened on a Friday in November, where people historically stay. Netflix also dumped a real small amount of $1 billion into growing their market in Mexico this year. So I think and if you have a Netflix account, you can use that anywhere in the world. So I think this fight could do a lot bigger than people think. I think it's certainly going to do less than Jake Paul and Mike Tyson because Mexico, college football rules America. Canelo is the biggest superstar in all of
Mexican
Mexico
Independence
right
Day.
It is Mexican Independence Day. I know historically MMA fans don't like to, especially in America, don't like to admit countries exist outside of America. But Mexico is, has famously a lot of people in Mexico City. I think this is not going to touch Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, but I think it is going to do a lot better than what my American counterparts and colleagues think, just because the Netflix has dumped so many resources into Mexico, and pay-per-view sales aren't really a thing outside. Like, that is very much an American market, right? Like when you talk to our friends in the UK, it's the pay-per-view thing just isn't a thing over there. Canelo is a superstar worldwide. Mexico, he walks on water. He is he's the second most famous Mexican boxer in the world ever, after Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. Even Canelo will admit that. So again, I'm going to sound like I'm going to sound like a squeaky wheel, but not going to touch Tyson Paul, but it's going to do a lot better than what a lot of people think, just because Canelo draws so much attention on Mexican Independence Day, and being able to watch it in Mexico for free on Netflix. I don't even know the phrasing. Like, it is not an exaggeration about how big of a deal that is for the Mexican audience.
I mean, you can give Jose the point because Jose has convinced me. I also decided to actually look at like numbers instead of just kind of vibing my way through this question. Currently, maybe not all the way up to date, 14 million Netflix subscribers in Mexico, 53 million Netflix subscribers in the Latin American market. It includes Mexico, but all of Latin America. I think you can assume that a heavy chunk of that number, and that 53 million was as of June. So you can assume that a pretty healthy chunk of that will be tuning in. And I would also venture to guess, I mean, watch parties sharing stuff. Also, there's probably like a decently high likelihood that just a bunch of people get Netflix in, Mexico and or Latin American countries for this event, because it's 1 month of, I don't know, what's Netflix cost, $20 now or whatever. So I'll actually say they're going to be closer to 50 mil globally.
Oh, okay.
Jose has made a compelling point, and then when I just looked at how many actual Netflix subscribers there are in Mexico, and that was in December of last year was the 14 million number. I assume that number has risen and will rise for this event. I'll say they clear 40, maybe not 50. I'll say they clear 40 million.
No. I think it'll be interesting because boxing, like, we all like boxing because we cover combat sports. Boxing is like 1A, 1B most popular sports in all of Mexico. It's like that in baseball, soccer, boxing. It's like right there.
Well, just give Jose the point. I mean, when
just give it to him. That's okay.
He was going to get it anyways, but that just takes the pomp and circumstance out of it. Jose gets the point. Nice
When
to
he
know.
said that Netflix had poured $1 billion into Mexico, which I didn't know because I don't keep up with that, I was like, they probably did that for a reason. Let me look. Oh, yeah, here's some numbers. Yeah, Jose's
If
probably right. This
you,
thing's going to do a lot better than I was thinking.
some of the best movies on Netflix are Mexican horror stories right now. Like, but it's not even just horror stories like based in Mexico. It's like they were filmed and it's like Spanish language Mexican horror stories. So they have been really pushing the Mexican audience.
I don't use Netflix a lot. I did just get turned on to watching the show Vikings, and that show freaking bangs. So
You're just watching Vikings like now in 2025?
yeah, I never watched it.
Oh,
Never watched
no.
it. Yeah.
I remember them being, and I'm not saying you'll become this, but they were the most insufferable fan base.
I mean, I can't be that insufferable because it's an old show.
Yeah,
but it bangs. It's just here's a crazy Norseman. All right,
it was like right on the cusp of like I can't remember when it started, but like when Reddit started to really take off is when Vikings started to really take off. So it's like the first show I remember seeing having such an online presence.
I mean, it's kind of like Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
Game
exactly.
of Thrones was good for a long time before it sucked.
Some breaking news. PFL, the Champion Series event, headlined by Usman Nurmagomedov versus Paul Hughes 2, will air on the brand new ESPN Unlimited. So it will cost you $30 to watch that event. So because that's how much
but you also get ESPN.
Yay. So there you have it. There's some news.
I'm excited because do you guys think ESPN Unlimited will be great and have no streaming issues? Is that?
I've have more streaming issues.
I bought it because I've always thought this is what ESPN should have done. ESPN Plus should have been to begin with. Just pay X amount of money, get all of ESPN. I watched it for 20 minutes and it took me 10 minutes to get through one segment of NFL Live because it kept freezing.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. So make sure you buy that $30 and don't miss a second of the action. So let's go to the knockout round question. One question will decide it all. I wasn't really sure where to go. And then I got a DM on Instagram and I was like, it's a pretty damn good question. We'll go with that. So Jed, Jed, do you want to go first or you want to pass it on over to Jose?
Sure. I'll go first. I have no idea what this is going to be about. So
okay. It's okay, Jed. It's something you are quite familiar with. You were, in fact, the guru for this particular subject for MMAfighting.com. It's a great website. The Almighty. The Almighty shoots in a message and says, I have a question, maybe for question of the day. But we're going to do it here, Jed. While Dana White's Contender Series is fun and it gives us something to do on a Tuesday night, will it ultimately go down as one of the worst ideas in UFC history in regards to the fan base, i.e. a watered-down product, filling up the roster with low-level price talent? While there's some UFC star potential, most of the fighters are clearly not UFC ready. So all in all, when we look back on the history of Dana White's Contender Series 20 years from now, will it ultimately be a good decision or a bad decision by Dana in the UFC to introduce this concept to the MMA fan base? 60 seconds on the clock, Jed. You are our Contender Series guy. We have to go a little deep here. Your thoughts, go.
Dude, I need 2 hours to unpack this question. No, like it's a great idea for the UFC. It doesn't even have to be a bad idea for the fans. It is just going to work out that way. But that's capitalism and monopoly. That's the issue. Because as he points out, the issue with Contender Series is instead of it being an actual like job interview tryout to get the best of the best, it has become, here's how we're going to sign 50 people a season at, bottom basement wage prices, scab prices functionally, and replace our mid-level talent with them. So we are only dirt cheap fighters and the top end fighters, and there's no middle class. We're eroding that. So functionally, it's going to be terrible. For the UFC, it's a great idea. This is how they've maximized profits, which is obviously their intent and goal. But this is not as bad as far as the decision as like probably the ESPN deal or this Paramount deal long term will be, but it's pretty terrible.
All right, Jose, we go to you. Of course, we all remember when The Ultimate Fighter came about. We got through like 10, 12 seasons. We're like, this is great. This is amazing. And now that we're at like season 33, we are like, why are we still doing this? Will we have that same feeling about Contender Series, Jose? Well, ultimately, when we look back on the history of Dana White's Contender Series a couple of decades from now, as a fan, will you look through it more through a positive lens or a negative lens? Obviously, it's going to be super positive for the UFC. 60 seconds on the clock. Go.
Again, this is going to sound like a non-answer, but if I'm just a casual MMA fan, I don't view the Contender Series as pretty much anything because I only tune into a handful of fights a year because there's just so much MMA happening all the time that I'm not a sicko and I'm not going to watch every single one. This is me speaking as if I was a casual fan. I'll catch the highlights on SportsCenter Top 10. I think there were 2 of them from this past Contender Series. So if I'm watching a fight night and I just see Joe Schmo fighting Joe Schmo and they say these 2 guys from the Contender Series, that doesn't really mean anything to me because it's not on cable network, so I'm not getting it shoved into my face, and I don't watch ESPN Plus religiously. So I think in 20 years from now, MMA is going to be much bigger than it has been because it grows every year. The UFC is going to be more of a monopoly. The UFC is going to be, holding 20 events a year in Saudi Arabia and possibly on the moon. And I think the Contender Series is just going to be looked at as it's there. It's always been there. I can't remember when it wasn't there. That's really just how I think people are going to do it.
All right, well done. Time to vote, people. Get your votes in. Does Jed and Otto win, or does Jose win?
I think the tough things about these types of questions are people that tune into BTL really like MMA. They really like MMA. My dad is not going to watch Between the Links if I'm not on. And he doesn't even know what the Contender Series is. I'm like, Dad, there's so many Contender Series. He's like, isn't that good? I'm like, no. And I'm explaining it to him. And he's like, oh, so bad. Like, it's just incomprehensible to him. Like, it doesn't matter
bad
to him.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter to him. I think that's how the majority of people view it. Like with my, I'm going to sound like I'm doing an ad. It's going to be a bit of a bummer. With my ESPN Unlimited account, I got to watch SportsCenter at home for the first time in 2 years because I don't have cable. So I go, I'm going to watch SportsCenter's top 10 plays. And lo and behold, there were 2 knockouts from the Contender Series. And they talked about a whole lot of toe sucking that whole episode of SportsCenter.
Oh, God.
Yeah, the CFFC fade has
in a while, but good for SportsCenter to have.
Yeah, Otto is here. Contender Series is in 5 contracts, and then one guy missed weight and didn't get a contract, but like the previous 2 weeks ago, a guy missed weight and got a contract who also took the fight on short notice. I don't understand.
Yeah, but that guy missed weight by a half pound. And also the guy who missed weight this week, Dana was like, buddy, you missed weight, but we'll let you come fight. He was the third. I think he was the third fighter to get the fight. Like, he took it on real short notice. Had a good story. Like, he's like, I'm a school teacher and I took this fight on 3 days notice and had to cut 40 pounds and didn't make it. And so Dana was like, you can fight on the final, you can fight on the last episode of the season, like with an actual plan, make weight and get your opportunity. I actually think Dana handled that correctly. I'm not sure he should have given the other dude one, but the guy did miss weight by half pounds. Like,
yeah, I would have done the same thing with the other guy. Yeah. It's a precedent. Now you can miss weight and get a contract. I'm just throwing that out there. Jake Hadley was the first one after he beat Mitch Raposo. Missed weight by like 3 pounds.
And one of the losers this week got a contract.
Yeah, because that was a good fight though, right?
It was. I mean, she clearly lost, and both of them were. It was one of those situations. Both of them should have just been signed outright. Like, they didn't need to do the Contender Series thing. So I absolutely agreed with it, but it's only like the 3rd or 4th time a loser has gotten an outright contract on Contender Series.
Yeah. All right.
She's
especially
big
when
big anime fan. Big anime fan.
Seems to be a popular trend. MMA. Casey is here.
She was arguing with a whole lot of people in my Instagram comments with the MVP clip where he talks about anime because people were talking shit about One Piece and she was the only one defending One Piece. So all the respect.
How were people talk? I don't even watch anime, but I know that One Piece is
Because
popular.
it's so
how are people talking
fucking
shit about
long.
it?
Because it's so long, bro. It's over 1,000 episodes, and there's still 10 years
Holy
to go.
shit!
Yeah,
Really?
so
Good
that's
God.
the literal reason why. Like, if there's one reason to talk shit about One Piece, it's get on with it. When your argument is it falls off a cliff after the 400th episode, but turns around in episode 900, there's a problem. That's a problem.
That's the thing. Like, I could never. I just picked up Vikings, had nothing to do, and was like, "I'll watch this," and I was like, "Oh, this rips." I could never do that for One Piece because I'd be like, "Oh, there are 1,000 episodes." Nope.
I was 8 years old when One Piece started, Aaron. There's a realistic chance I could, get married and have a child before the next One Piece ends.
Jesus Christ.
Damn. Casey is here.
1,000
live from
episodes
Las
is so
Vegas.
many episodes.
That's a lot of episodes.
It's a lot of episodes. Speaking of a lot of episodes, I think we've had 1,000 BTLs, or at least we're getting close to it. Casey, who won this week's episode of BTL?
Oh, you know what? I was about to announce a winner, but banter for a couple more minutes because the votes got very close. I want to give it I'm going to give it one more minute. So I'm going to get those last second votes in because I thought we had a winner, but
Mike, did you watch Contender Series this week at all?
I did not. I've been sick as shit for the last week and a half, and
it's true.
Tuesday I was starting to come around a little bit, and I was like, if I stay up and watch Contender Series, then I'm just going to be. That's 2 hours of sleep that I should be getting right now, and I chose to just kind of nuke myself with some NyQuil and sleep the night away.
Tell me crazy, Jed, but the two gents in the main event are straight from 2004 MMA, are they not?
Oh, 100%.
Bad
honestly,
tattoos,
it was like
bad tattoos, sloppy fighting, and just nonsense trash talk.
It was heavyweight D-Rod versus heavyweight Mike Perry. If both of them were way worse, and it rocked. It was so stupid and against my better judgment, Steve Asplund, the guy who won, he's going to be one of my guys. I don't actually think he's good because he's not, but God, he was funny. The toe sucking thing was super weird, but the rest of it was just he is a man with a lot of feelings. And he just expresses them in a stream of consciousness manner because he knocked this dude out in 16 seconds or whatever. It's the third fastest knockout in Contender Series history. And in the pre-fight, he's kind of respectful and chill about it. He's he had a great line about this is trailer park versus trailer trash. And all the people watching were like, who's who? We don't know who is who in this situation. And he knocks this dude out. And right after he knocks him out, he goes over to his corner and he's like, it's all love. Great. We did it. Cool. And then he in the back is just F that guy. You thought I was an easy fight. So he's going through all the emotions at one point in time. And it's the best. He used to be 500 pounds apparently, Mike. And so he looks like Josh Haynes. You remember Josh Haynes, the Ultimate Fighter dude?
Oh yeah. I know.
I know. $1 billion pounds. But... Yeah.
He
just kept being
And his dad was a Bellator vet.
And he kept talking about it.
So he's I achieved the dream. He's I achieved the dream that my dad could never make. And I'm I don't know if I like this guy because he says a really great thing and then he says a really awful thing. But then he beat the guy that also said awful things. I'm I don't know how to feel about anything right now, but I'm here for it.
100% because it's almost a certainty that he is going to say something that's just the worst thing you've heard in a week. But he also is just his story's pretty good. His name is Concrete because his dad was Concrete. And it's just he's
and the guy he beat
to spite himself.
The guy he beat was like, because I was watching the video packs, he's like, I don't even know why I'm on the Contender Series. They should just book me in the top 10 right now. I'm that good. I'm like, does he have like 1,000 fights? So I like looked, he's like 3-0. And I'm like, he's 3-0 in like the last 11 months. Yeah. And I'm like, also this guy's just saying what he thinks he should say. And he's talking so much shit. And then he goes out there and gets melted in 60 seconds. I was like, this is just, I feel like we're on the Ultimate Fighter right now.
It was incredible. Asplin, like, again, after being like all respect and love to the team, in the back, he's like, Daywalker my ass. How he's asleep. I was just like, what, buddy? How do you keep one energy? You're so confused. He's the best. He's going to be my boy because he's very silly. He's a very silly goose.
Is Chad becoming like a pro wrestling fan? Oh, sorry. Like, I feel like Jed's like starting to really love the pro wrestling aspect of MMA way more than the fighting part.
No, I
like,
like
isn't a bad thing.
I like silly people. I like very silly people because they're silly and it makes me laugh in this very stupid sport.
He was when Laura was interviewing him, he's like, Dana, please give me the contract. I will suck your toes if that's what it takes. And I was like,
which is
what? And I like took my headphones
outside
off,
of being
what?
Just like outside of being like a wildly out of pocket thing to say, he just got the third fastest knockout. Like, there's no question that you're getting the contract. So he just wanted to say that. And then it's like he wanted that out there.
And then I look up and he has all this loose skin on his chest, and he takes a handful of his loose skin and just holds it out like bat wings. I'm like, what is going on with this individual? Right
he's a very silly man.
You know what? I saw that little video and I was like, I couldn't tell what was going on. I was like, you know what? Maybe this is too low res. I don't want to zoom in on this. So that's what he was doing. Okay.
No, you could tell. You could tell what was going on.
Yeah. All right, we have a winner. With
I can't wait to see him fight.
58% of the votes. Your winner today is Jed and Otto.
Otto, we did it. Vengeance is yours, Otto.
Silly Goose Gang.
Silly Goose Gang. Silly Goose Gang, Otto.
Congratulations, Jed. What would you like to
Otto.
say?
He's so happy.
And Otto, you can give a few choice words as well.
Otto's like, thanks, guys. Because we won, Jed's going to give me a lot of treats now. Whereas if we had lost, I was going to go in the metaphorical doghouse. And so now I don't. Yay. That's not true. I would have given Otto treats anyway. Because just look at him.
Yes. What a dog. Jose, thoughts on the decision here?
Well, it was a little weird last time I won because it seems like, every time I face Jed, the winner has been decided before this matchup even takes place. So I feel like the timeline is back to normal. There was a little blip. It's weird that the blip happened on a regular day and then I can't get a win on Mexican Independence Day week. But we persevere. That's all I have to say.
Oh, man. I didn't even think about that.
It happens. Packers, Commanders. Commanders tonight.
But what even matters? The Packers are winning the Super Bowl. You're good.
That's right. Correct. But we can't lose to Jaden Daniels. As a former Sun Devil, the only thing worse than losing to the Bears is losing to Jaden Daniels.
Well, I don't think you're going to have to worry about losing to the Bears
Casey.
for a while.
No. Nope, I don't think anybody will have to worry about that. Casey, hit the music. We are done. We are out of here. Lots going on over the next 48 hours. We will have, we got LFA 217, big one tomorrow night. Gable Stevenson making his debut. Some fun prospects on that card as well. Yoel Romero making his BKFC debut tomorrow night, so that should be fun. And then Saturday, we got Noche UFC. We got Canelo Crawford. We have you covered on all of that stuff. MMAfighting.com is a great website for Jed, for Jose, for Casey. We are out of here. Back next week to unpack it all right here on Between the Links. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
This has been Between the Links, an MMA fighting production on the Vox Media Network.